there, I'm Dawn Dancing Otter. I am the creator, the head teacher, and coach for the WeWork School of Soul Recovery. And today I'm going to share a little bit about a trauma response that might be unknown to you or observed but not really understood as a trauma response. And that would be something I would describe as ultra independence. Ultra independence is something you might observe in your own life or in the life of a friend or a coworker or even a supervisor or a teacher, where that person is so certain that they are the one who needs to step forward, the one who needs to be the rock for everyone, the one who is the source of support for an entire family or for a group of people, but not really in a leadership way, more in like they're the heavy. They're the one that takes all of the, does all the heavy lifting. And they don't ask for help. That's the key. They don't ask for help. Or they might ask for it in a really covert way, like in a passive aggressive way, but they won't ask for it outright. And that can be really frustrating, especially if that person is your partner or that person is your boss, because it becomes then a conflict around trying to help a person. You're almost having to force them to receive your help if that happens at all. And if we start to see this as an emerged in behavior that is practiced based on skills that were learned at a very young age, and based on a mindset that is of a child rather than the mindset of an adult, we start to really understand it better. That it's often emerging because that child that they were didn't get their needs met in a variety of ways. One of those ways can be that they were neglected, and so they had to meet all of their needs themselves, or many of those needs themselves, without any parental help or without the kind of parental help they need. And believe me when I say this, that rarely is kind of an absolute thing. It's sometimes neglect happens in an overt way, where a parent is really not looking after the best interests of the child. And sometimes it's more subtle. Sometimes it's just not being plugged in. And I can think about a client I had who talked about her parent being really absent emotionally because of depression. And that's not the want or the desire of that parent to be absent because of depression. It's not something they could have controlled. So I'm not talking in terms of culpability of caregivers here. I'm talking about the experience really of the child. And so to be in the experience of neglect and not having your needs met and then having to meet them on your own means that you're trying to make decisions without a brain that really understands long-term outcomes, and so tries to fix it in the moment. And so you can recognize people who are overtly, putting themselves into the position of meeting the needs of people around them, but maybe they're not structuring their behavior so that there's a sustainable effort being put in by themselves or by other people. They're just sort of trying to fix problems and maybe not doing that so great. What might be observed in people like that is people who really, they try really, really hard in their relationships or at their workplace. They put a lot of energy in, but they don't have anything left for themselves at home to take care of their own basic needs. And then, because they won't ask for help, the story that they reinforce is that nobody is there for them to help them, and that they then try harder because the story they're leaning into is that nobody helps them. The other way in which that can happen, that ultra-independence can emerge, is from people who have had really dominating parents, or people who feel or experienced that they were dominated or overparented. And that can look as subtle as a parent with a really strong personality or strong expressions in their personality, because a big person is always so much bigger to a small child. Or it can look as overt as being a really abusive parent. And so that experience for many folk can look like a person who is really driven. They're really driven and they're unable to actually stop driving themselves. There's a hit of pleasure or what's the word I'm looking for? There is an experience of reinforced validation in that drive, and probably other people are like, wow, like you really have your stuff together. That drive is really something that is impressive, and we tend to, in our systemic world right now, be really impressed by other people's ability to endure stress and to perform in those places. And really, you know, that person cannot accept help oftentimes because they don't want to feel dominated. They don't want to feel that somebody else's voice counts over their own, or that they might be coerced into doing something they don't want to do. And that's a real intense fear internally for a lot of people. So these adverse childhood experiences can turn out creating a person, an adult, who their drive is really focused in some ways really about surviving social encounters with people in a way that makes them feel powerful, but results in them actually, you know, pushing people away and out of their lives, because a person like that doesn't have the opportunity to really have fulsome relationships, because that requires vulnerability. That also requires us to ask for help. And if we're not doing that, we can't actually know people, because it's in those vulnerabilities and those moments where we say, I don't know how to do this, and I don't have this together, and I need help. And that we actually, you know, welcome it when it comes and receive it when it comes. That oftentimes we, as people, if we're in that experience, you know, our close friends are really few and far between. And so working on this through trauma recovery will open people up to more support from their community, and will also open people up to know them with more intimacy, because a person who has kind of walled everyone off from their need for help won't have real intimacy with people, and they won't relate to people intimately with ease. Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I see this behavior rewarded in our polite society, and I would say that it is very toxic behavior for the person, but also probably for many people in their lives. If this is something you're interested in knowing more about or exploring, maybe you identify with it, please like and subscribe. And also you can contact me. I'm at theweaveworkschool.com, and I can be emailed at theweaveworkschool@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.